He was rich enough to buy anything, except the truth. She was just a little girl with grease-stained fingers and a ring no one could explain. When a millionaire's car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, he meets a child who changes everything. But when he sees that ring, his past crashes into his present like a thunderstorm. Who gave her that ring, and what does she know about the woman he tried to forget? Vincent Langford gripped the steering wheel of his sleek black Mercedes, frustration boiling in his chest as the engine gave one final cough before dying completely. The rain pounded on the windshield like fists demanding answers, and the signal bars on his phone had long since vanished. He was a man used to control, power meetings, billion-dollar investments, private jets. But now, he sat stranded on a muddy backroad in a forgotten part of Alabama, 30 miles from the nearest gas station, and entirely alone. Thunder rolled overhead like some divine joke, and Vincent, dressed in Italian wool and custom shoes, cursed as water leaked through the crack in his window. He hadn't seen another car in over an hour. This wasn't part of his world. It wasn't supposed to be part of his day. He kicked the tire in anger, as if blaming the vehicle might breathe life back into it. That's when he heard it, a small shuffle behind him. He turned, ready to yell, but instead froze. Standing not 20 feet away was a young girl, no more than 10, holding a crooked umbrella with cartoon frogs on it. Her overalls were patched and dirty, her boots worn, but her eyes held something sharp, something curious. "You stuck?" she asked, voice calm as if they weren't in the middle of a storm. Vincent blinked. "Excuse me," he said, tone clipped. The girl walked closer, inspecting the car with practiced eyes. "Your relay's probably wet. Mercedes always act up when you don't seal the junction box. I can fix it." Vincent stared, unsure whether to laugh or get back in the car and lock the doors. "You," he said. She nodded. Zoe worked fast, her fingers nimble despite the cold and wet. Vincent watched, still in disbelief, as the little girl adjusted hoses, tightened bolts, and tapped a relay box like she knew the machine's secrets. Within 10 minutes, the car sputtered back to life. "Told you," she said with a proud grin. Vincent blinked, feeling utterly disarmed. How did you, he tried, but the words fell flat. That's when he noticed her hand. As she closed the hood and wiped her fingers on her jeans, a glint of silver caught his eye. On her finger, small and dirt-stained, was a ring. A ring he hadn't seen in over a decade. A ring that shouldn't be here. A ring he had once given to someone, and never expected to see again. The storm seemed to pause in that moment. For Vincent, time collapsed. He knew that ring. He knew it better than he wanted to admit. Because once, long ago, he had given it to someone he loved, and left. Now, somehow, impossibly, it was on the finger of a child who knew how to fix a Mercedes better than most adults. "What's your mama's name?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the wind. Zoe hesitated, her expression tightening. "Don't remember. Gramps says I was real little when she left. Says she went up north and never came back." Vincent's stomach dropped. His mouth went dry. "What's your last name?" he asked next. "Langford," she said. "Same as the garage. Been that way forever." He opened the car door, but didn't climb in. He looked at Z again, like seeing her for the first time. "Where's your grandpa?" he asked, though his heart was already pounding with questions he didn't want to answer. She pointed down the road to a small garage barely visible through the mist. "Langford Auto," she said. "Funny, right? We didn't name it after you. That's been the name forever." Vincent's knees felt weak. He took a step back, 100 images flashing through his mind, of a young woman with a soft laugh, a promise broken, and a future he ran away from. The engine hummed behind him. But nothing inside him was calm anymore. Zoe Langford had always been different. Even before she could spell her own name, she was drawn to machines. While other kids in town were playing with dolls or chasing each other through the dusty fields, Zoe was in her grandfather's garage, watching closely as he worked on beat-up engines and old transmissions. Her fingers learned by mimicking his, memorizing the rhythm of tightening bolts, tracing wires, and listening for the soft click that meant something was fixed. Her grandfather, Earl, was patient but proud, always handing her real tools instead of toys. He didn't see her as just a kid, he saw her as a partner in the one thing he loved most, fixing things that others gave up on. By the time she was 8, she could strip an engine down to its bones and rebuild it before most grown men figured out where the starter was. Earl wasn't just a mechanic, he was a storyteller, too. And every story he told Zee ended the same way: "You're special, baby. One day, someone's gonna need you more than they know." Zee didn't know what he meant by that. She only knew that no matter how tough things got, she could lose herself in a motor's hum or the satisfying clunk of a job well done. The garage was their safe space, filled with old photos, greasy rags, and the scent of oil that seemed to live in her skin. It was also the only place where Ziri felt completely seen, completely understood. She never knew her father. And her mother. A faded photo on the wall and a silence that made her name feel like a locked door. The ring had always been a mystery. Ziri wore it since she was 5, long before she even knew what a promise ring was. Earl had given it to her without much explanation. He said it belonged to her mother, who left when Zee was too small to remember. "She wanted you to have it," was all he'd say, brushing off questions with a heavy sigh. Zee never took it off. The silver band was slightly too large, worn down at the edges, with an engraving on the inside that she'd never been able to make out. But it made her feel connected to someone, like a thread between her and a past no one wanted to talk about. Whenever she felt alone or uncertain, she'd touch the ring and feel a little steadier. Their life was simple, if hard. Earl made what little money he could fixing farm trucks and lawnmowers, but business had slowed over the years. Most people in town couldn't afford repairs, and even fewer drove luxury cars. Some months were tighter than others, and the winter brought long nights without heat. But Earl never complained. He said as long as they had each other and the tools still worked, they were rich in all the ways that mattered. Zoe believed him, at least until the day she saw him staring at a pile of unpaid bills a little too long, or skipping meals so she could eat. She pretended not to notice, but she noticed everything. She had asked once, years ago, if her mom would ever come back. Earl paused for a long time, then said, if she could've, she would've. That's all I know. He never mentioned her again, and Ziri learned not to ask. But late at night, she'd sometimes hold the ring in her palm and wonder what kind of woman her mother was. Brave? Sad? Was she like Zeri? Did she love engines, too? Some days, Zeri thought she saw her face in the mirror. Not Earl's, not her own, but someone in between. She held onto the ring like it held those answers, tucked tight into the curl of her fingers. She didn't go to a real school, not anymore. Earl taught her at home after the school district labeled her a disruption. The principal said she asked too many questions and didn't stay in her lane. Earl said that made her brilliant. He taught her math through engine specs, science through oil viscosity, reading through manuals. Z soaked it all in. When other kids teased her for always smelling like grease, she'd just shrug. Grease means I'm doing something, she'd say. What are you doing? The garage was her classroom, her world. And she excelled in it. Sometimes, Earl would sit by the garage door with a cigar he never lit, staring out at the gravel road as if waiting for someone. Zeri would sit beside him, mimicking his pose, silent and patient. Those were the moments when Earl would let slip little things, how her mom had wild dreams, how she could take apart a V8 engine faster than most men in the county. But just as quickly, he'd go quiet again, as if the memories burned too hot to hold. She had your fire, he'd say once, and Zeri tucked the phrase into her heart like a spark waiting to catch. Z didn't know what it meant to have a mother who left, only what it felt like to have a piece of herself missing. Sometimes, in the dark, she'd whisper questions into her pillow. Did her mom know she liked sweet tea with too much sugar? Did she know Z hated thunderstorms but loved the sound of tires on gravel? Did she know her daughter could fix things, really fix things? The ring became her answer. If it came from her mother, it meant she was real. It meant she was watching, somewhere. Maybe. One afternoon, after helping a neighbor fix a busted axle, Ziri wandered behind the garage to the old shed Earl kept locked. She wasn't supposed to go near it, but something pulled her there. She pressed her ear to the door, hoping for a sound, a whisper, anything. She never found a key, but she knew it held something important. Earl had once slipped up and called it her room before catching himself. Whose room? Her mom's. Hers. She didn't ask. She was afraid of the answer. Zoe's world was small, just the garage, the gravel road, and the hum of forgotten engines, but it was enough. Or it had been, until that day the black Mercedes rolled up like something from another life. When she saw it sputtering near the tree line, something inside her clicked. Not fear, not surprise, something more like fate. As if all the years turning bolts and listening to Earl had led to this exact moment. She didn't understand why at the time. She just knew she had to help. And when the man stepped out and stared at her like a ghost, her world tilted just slightly, like a bolt turned one thread too far. She didn't notice his face at first. She only saw the confusion, the disbelief, the way his eyes kept flicking down to her hand. She was used to that. Most grown-ups didn't know what to make of a little girl with engine oil on her cheek and confidence in her voice. But when she saw him staring at the ring, not her, not the tools, not even the car, it made her chest tighten. People looked at her strangely sometimes, but never like that. Never with fear. Never with memory. That night, after he drove off and the storm passed, Z sat on the garage floor under a single bare bulb, turning the ring over in her fingers. She scrubbed it gently with an old toothbrush, the way Earl showed her, and for the first time in years, she noticed something new. Letters. Faint and nearly worn away, but there. She squinted, heart racing. There was an L. Then a V. Her breath caught. And then, Z. Her name. Z. Carved inside. As if the ring had been hers all along, even before she was born. She didn't sleep that night. Earl didn't ask why, and she didn't tell him. But something inside her had shifted. Not like a bolt gone loose, but like a door just barely cracked open. A life she hadn't known was waiting outside that door. And for the first time, she was thinking about opening it. Vincent Langford didn't sleep well that night. Even in his luxury hotel room 30 miles away, the memory of the girl haunted him. Her voice. Her hands. That ring. He sat by the window, watching the rain streak the glass, holding a whiskey he didn't touch. He told himself it was impossible. Coincidence. A fluke. But his heart wouldn't stop racing. The engraving inside the ring, he hadn't seen it, but he knew it. He'd paid extra to have it inscribed when he was younger and foolishly in love. LVZ. Langford. Vincent. Z. It couldn't be. And yet the possibility gnawed at him like rust under paint. He hadn't thought about Lainey in years. At least not out loud. But in quiet moments, she was there, smiling, angry, leaving. Always leaving. The next morning, he didn't go to his meetings. Instead, he drove back down the winding country roads, past the fields and rusted fences, until he found the garage again. It looked even smaller in daylight, like a place time had forgotten. He hesitated before stepping out of the car. What was he even doing? Looking for ghosts? But something pulled him forward. When he walked through the door, the scent of oil and thyme hit him like a wave. Zoe was under a lifted truck, legs sticking out, humming to herself. Earl glanced up from a corner stool, a wary look spreading across his face. Earl didn't recognize him at first. He stood slowly from behind the counter, wiping his hands on a rag. His eyes narrowed, studying the stranger in the suit. "Can I help you?" he asked. Vincent forced a polite smile. "Just passing through. I was here yesterday. The girl helped me with my car." Earl glanced toward the truck. "Z. She's good like that." There was a pause. "You don't see many kids like her," Vincent said. "No," Earl agreed. "You don't." The silence stretched. Vincent cleared his throat. "She fixed my car like she built it herself." "She practically did," Earl said. Earl didn't answer right away. He moved behind the counter, picked up a clipboard, and pretended to check something. "She's my granddaughter," he said after a long pause. "Been with me since she was a baby." Vincent's heart pounded louder. "And her mother?" Earl's jaw tightened. "Gone," he said. "Been gone a long time." "Did she ever say why?" Vincent asked. Earl didn't look at him. People have their reasons. The tension in the room grew heavy, thick like motor oil. Vincent nodded slowly, then turned to leave, but stopped himself. He walked out to the truck where Z was working. She slid out, grinning. "Hey, the Mercedes guy." "Vincent," he said gently. "My name's Vincent." She wiped her hands on her jeans. "Did the car hold up?" "Like a dream," he said. They stood in awkward silence. Finally, he asked, "Do you know what the letters inside your ring mean?" Zuri looked down, twisting the silver band around her finger. "I saw Z. My name. That's all." Vincent crouched beside her. "What if I told you I'd seen that ring before?" he asked. Her smile faded. She blinked. "You have." "A long time ago," he said. "I gave it to someone I loved. She disappeared." Zuri frowned. "My mom." Vincent nodded slowly. "Maybe." Her eyes searched his face. "You knew her?" "Yes," he said. "A very long time ago. Her name was Lainey." Z's breath caught. "Earl never says her name. Only once, when he thought I was asleep." Vincent felt a lump in his throat. "She was kind. Brave. Stubborn as hell. She left one night, and I never knew why. I tried to find her, but she was gone. Now I think she didn't want to be found." Vincent sat beside her on the gravel, the luxury of his world shrinking against the dirt under his shoes. "I don't know what happened to her, Ziri. But that ring. I had it made. For her. When she was pregnant." Ziri stared at him. "You think you're my dad?" He flinched. "I don't know. Maybe. It's possible." She looked away. "Why'd she leave?" "I wish I knew," he said. "Maybe she thought she had to." The moment hung between them like a question with no answer. Then Ziri stood. "Gramps raised me. He's my family." Vincent nodded. "He's a good man." Ziri crossed her arms. "He didn't leave." "I know," Vincent said. "And I'm not here to take anything. I needed to know. That's all." She looked at him for a long time. "You're not what I expected," she said. He smiled. "Neither are you." From inside, Earl watched through the cracked window. His eyes were wet, but his face was hard. He knew the truth the moment Vincent walked in. He had spent a decade hiding it. But now, truth had found its way back, with a ring. Later that afternoon, Earl called Zee into the back room. The one with the records, the old metal filing cabinet, and the picture of Lainey hidden behind a calendar. He sat in the old armchair that creaked when he shifted, rubbing his knees like he always did when nervous. "You like that man?" he asked. Zee shrugged. "I don't know. He's different." Earl nodded slowly. "He's from another world. Ain't never been a place for men like him around here." "But he knew her," Zeri said. "He said he gave her the ring." Earl leaned forward. "He's not lying. That ring came from him. I should have told you years ago, but I was trying to protect you. Your mama, she loved that man. But something happened. I don't know what. She came back alone, with you in her belly, and a look in her eyes like the world had ended." Zee was quiet. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were a child," Earl said. "And I didn't want you chasing ghosts. I wanted you to feel safe, here, with me." She nodded, slowly, unsure how to feel. Part of her was angry. Part of her felt sorry for him. And part of her just felt lost. Back at his hotel, Vincent sat alone, staring at an old photo in his wallet. It was the only one he kept, Lainey in front of a diner, smiling with wind in her hair. He'd carried guilt for years, unsure what went wrong. Now, he had a name. A face. A child who might be his. But what did that mean now? He hadn't been there for the hard years. For the crying nights or the scraped knees. He was a stranger with a ring-shaped key to a door he wasn't sure he had the right to open. And yet, when he saw Zeri, something deep in him shifted, something he thought had been buried with the past. The next morning, he came back again. This time, with coffee and new tools wrapped in a bright red case. Zeri smiled when she saw them. "For me." He nodded. I thought maybe you could use some new gear. You didn't have to, she said. I wanted to, he replied. It's just tools. She looked at him sideways. Nothing's ever just tools. Earl stayed in the shadows that day, working silently on an old Dodge, but keeping one eye on the pair outside. He watched as they spoke, how Zoe laughed more than usual, how she leaned in slightly when Vincent talked. He saw a door opening, one he'd tried to keep shut. As the sun set behind the garage, painting the sky with fire, Zoe turned to Vincent. Are you leaving? Tomorrow, he said. Got a flight? She bit her lip. Will you come back? Vincent paused. If you want me to. She nodded, but didn't speak. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, rusted bolt. This came from the first engine I fixed by myself, she said. Keep it. So you remember I don't need saving. Vincent took it, holding it like it was made of gold. I never thought you did, he said. Inside, Earl closed the shop for the night. He stood at the door, watching the two figures in the dim light, and felt something shift. Maybe it was time. Maybe the truth was no longer something to bury. Maybe this girl deserved answers, and choices. And maybe, just maybe, Vincent Langford had come back not to disrupt, but to make things right. But that would be Zoe's decision, not his. Zoe didn't tell her friends, not that she had many. Most of the kids in town thought she was weird, too smart, too quiet, always covered in grease. But now, she carried something heavier than tools. Questions. Doubt. That ring felt heavier too, like it knew things she didn't. She kept thinking about what Vincent said. Could he really be her father? And if he was, did that change anything? Earl had always been her world. But now a piece of her world was shifting, revealing cracks she didn't know were there. She kept touching the ring, twisting it around and around, hoping it would whisper answers. It never did. At dinner, she watched Earl closely. He was quiet, more than usual. He poked at his food and avoided her eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse. You think he's lying? Z shook her head. I don't know. He seems honest. But people lie all the time, don't they? Earl let out a slow breath. He used to be a good man. Or maybe he still is. But good men make bad choices. And bad choices leave marks. Zoe nodded slowly. Did he know about me? I don't think so, Earl said. Your mama never said his name, not once. She came back, had you, and raised you here with me. That was her choice. And I honored it. The next day, Vincent returned once again. This time, he didn't bring tools. He brought photos. A stack of old pictures, some faded, some torn. He handed them to Zoe one by one. There was one of Lainey and Vincent on a beach, another of Lainey holding a wrench and laughing, and one of a small white box with a ribbon, her ring box. Zoe held the photo tight. That's this ring, she whispered. Vincent nodded. I had it made for her when we found out she was pregnant. She wore it every day. Until the day she left. Zoe studied the pictures like they held secret codes, searching her mother's face for clues. Zoe wasn't sure what to feel. There was something beautiful and sad about seeing her mother like that. Smiling, alive, real. Not just a silence in the house. Not just an old story. Why did she leave you? She asked quietly. Vincent's jaw tightened. I was a coward, he said. I was building something big. A company. I told myself there wasn't room for a family. She wanted more than I was willing to give. Zoe stared at him. You told her no. I told her later, he said. She didn't wait. And now? She asked. Now I know what I lost, Vincent said. And maybe what I still have a chance to find. That evening, Earl finally opened the old shed. Zoe followed him in, heart pounding. The air smelled like dust and memories. Inside were boxes stacked to the ceiling, a small cot, and a suitcase with Lainey's name on it. Earl pulled out a bundle wrapped in fabric. These were hers, he said. Old letters. A journal. A tiny pair of baby shoes. Zoe's shoes. She sat on the cot and opened the journal. The first page read, If she ever asks, tell her I loved her enough to let go. Her hands trembled. Page after page, Lainey's handwriting spilled across the pages, filled with pain and hope and words she never got to say aloud. Vincent came by again the next morning, but Earl stopped him outside. She needs time, he said. She's learning her whole life wasn't what she thought. Don't push her. Vincent nodded. I won't. But I won't disappear either. Earl looked at him hard. You better not. They shook hands. Not with warmth, but with respect. Inside, Ziri sat cross-legged with the journal in her lap, reading page after page. Her mother's voice was soft, poetic, and full of sorrow. There was no bitterness, just longing. And love. So much love, it leaked through the ink and soaked into Ziri's heart. She walked out into the yard that night, barefoot in the grass, ring glinting under the stars. Vincent sat on the hood of his car, looking up at the sky. She walked over, handed him one of the baby shoes. She kept everything, she said. She didn't forget you. Vincent held the shoe like it was sacred. I never forgot her, he said. I just didn't know what to do with the guilt. Ziri looked at him. Maybe don't do anything yet. Just be here. He nodded. They sat side by side in the quiet night, both holding pieces of a past neither could fix, but maybe could carry. The next few days passed slowly, filled with silence, sideways glances, and unspoken thoughts. Z stopped working on engines for a while. She just read. She read the letters, the journal, everything her mother left behind. She learned about the dreams Lainey had, the fears she carried, the nights she cried while pregnant. She read about Vincent too, how Lainey had loved him, how she had hoped he would come after her, and how she finally realized he wouldn't. One entry struck her hardest. If our baby ever sees his face, I hope she looks him in the eye and tells him who she is. Earl found her asleep on the cot one night, the journal still open across her chest. He pulled a blanket over her and turned off the light. The next morning, she woke up with something different in her eyes. Not sadness, but clarity. She went to the garage, cleaned every tool, organized every drawer, and turned on the radio to Earl's favorite station. When he came in, she handed him coffee without a word. He nodded. Things were beginning to mend. That afternoon, Vincent returned once more, not with questions, not with gifts, just with time. He sat beside her in the shade, helping her sort bolts and parts, letting the silence speak. You know, he said after a while, I used to think being rich meant having control, owning things, winning. But now I think it means knowing what not to walk away from. Z didn't answer. But she didn't move away either. That night, she spoke up. You didn't stay for her. Why should I think you'd stay for me? Vincent looked at her carefully. I'm not asking you to trust me. Not yet. I'm asking for the chance to earn it. What if you leave again? She asked. Then you'll know I'm not who you hoped, he said. But if I stay, maybe we find something worth fixing. She didn't reply right away. Then she handed him the wrench she kept on her keychain. Start with this, she said. You'll need it. Earl watched them from the porch, a quiet mix of worry and hope in his chest. He'd spent 10 years protecting Ziri from a world that had already taken too much. But now, maybe the girl needed more than protection. Maybe she needed answers. Maybe even redemption, for all of them. That night, he placed the journal back in its box, sealed it shut, and put it in the shed. It had done its job. The sky thundered again the next evening, another storm brewing. Ziri stood in the yard, ring on her finger, watching the clouds roll in. Vincent joined her, not saying anything. She finally turned to him. You should know something, she said. I'm not a little girl who needs saving. I'm a mechanic. I fix things. Vincent smiled. Then maybe you're the only one who can fix me. She didn't laugh, but she didn't walk away either. And in the distance, thunder cracked like a door being kicked open, making space for the truth to settle in. The morning after the second storm, everything felt quieter. Ziri woke early, long before the rooster crowed, and found herself staring at the ceiling. The air felt different, like it had secrets in it. Outside, dew clung to the grass like tiny mirrors, and the sky had a silver tint that made the whole world feel paused. She went to the garage and sat in the open doorway, watching the light spread slowly over the trees. Her ring glinted in the morning sun. She turned it slowly, thinking about everything it had come to represent. Her mother's silence, her grandfather's strength, and now this man who wasn't quite a stranger anymore. Vincent pulled up just after 9, the Mercedes now spotless, as if trying to make a second impression. He stepped out carrying something, an envelope. Earl stood nearby, arms crossed, suspicious as always. Zee met Vincent halfway down the driveway. "What's that?" she asked. "Something I should have given you sooner," he said. He handed her the envelope. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. But it wasn't from Vincent. It was from Lainey. The handwriting was careful, curved, like someone who wrote each word with a heartbeat. Zoe froze. Zoe stepped back. "You kept this?" Vincent nodded. "I didn't have the courage to read it until last night. I found it tucked into one of her books. She must have left it on purpose." Zoe unfolded the paper, hands shaking. She read the first lines out loud. "Vincent, if you ever find this, I hope you're ready to be a father. Not because it's easy, but because she deserves to know the truth." Her throat tightened. She always hoped you'd come back. She even picked your name without knowing it. Z. It was a name she dreamed. A name that felt right. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know she thought about me like that." She folded the letter and held it against her chest. Earl walked over, eyes wet, voice low. "I didn't know she wrote that," he said. "She never showed it to me." Vincent looked between them, unsure what to do, unsure what to say. I think she wanted to believe we'd meet again. That somehow, when Ziri was ready, everything would come together." Ziri turned to them both. "I don't know what to feel," she said. "It's like I'm reading someone else's life." "It's still yours," Earl said. "But now, you know where it began." Later that day, while going through the shed again, Ziri found a small photo hidden under the cot mattress. It was a picture of Lainey, pregnant, wearing Vincent's old college sweatshirt, standing next to a car she'd clearly been working on. Behind her, barely visible, was Vincent himself. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at her. Z stared at the photo for a long time. Then she tucked it into her pocket and went to find Vincent. They drove together to the town's edge, to a hilltop that overlooked the fields. She handed him the photo. "I think she forgave you," Zeri said. "Even if she never said it." Vincent looked at the photo, then at her. "She loved you," Zeri added. "But I think she wanted me to choose who I was going to love. That's why she didn't tell me about you. So I could decide for myself." Vincent's eyes burned. "And what do you choose?" Z shrugged. "Not yet. But I'm not saying no." As they sat together in the car, Vincent took a deep breath. "There's something else," he said. "Something I've never told anyone." Ziri looked over. "What?" "The night your mother left. She left because of me. Not just because I said no to a family. But because she found out something I was hiding. I'd been offered a huge contract overseas. One that would take me away for years. I didn't tell her. I didn't even plan to. I figured I'd go, make my fortune, and come back when I was ready." Ziri stared at him. Her face didn't flinch, but her hands curled into fists. "I was selfish," Vincent said. "I thought love could wait. That it would just be there when I came back. But your mother knew better. She left before I could abandon her. She saved herself. And she saved you from waiting on a man who wasn't ready." Z didn't speak. The words settled over her like dust, quiet and final. But then she nodded. "She was smart," she said. "And brave." "She was," Vincent agreed. They drove back in silence, the road winding through the trees like a ribbon of memory. When they got back to the garage, Earl was waiting. He didn't speak either. He just nodded once and walked inside. Ziri stood outside a while longer, staring at the old tools hanging on the wall. "People say the truth sets you free," she said quietly. "But it kind of just makes you heavier first." Vincent didn't argue. That night, as the sun dipped below the hills, Ziri wrote her own letter. Not to Vincent. Not to Earl. but to her mother. She wrote about the car that broke down. The stranger who wasn't really a stranger. The letter that changed everything. And the ring that was never just jewelry. She tucked the letter into the journal and closed it, leaving it by the window. The breeze caught the edge of the page, flipping it slightly, like her mother was reading it too. In the days that followed, Vincent didn't press Ziri for answers. He just stayed close, offering small helps around the shop, sweeping floors, organizing tools, handing Earl the right size socket without being asked. Z noticed the change. He wasn't trying to impress anyone anymore. He was just present. And that, more than anything, started to matter. When the town's only waitress came by with a broken starter, Z fixed it while Vincent held the light steady. He didn't try to solve things. He just stood beside her. One evening, Zoe asked Earl, "Did you ever want him to come back?" Earl took a long sip from his cup before answering. "I wanted him to come back different," he said. "I wanted the man who would fight for her. Not the one who left." "And now?" she asked. He looked toward the garage. "Now I see a man trying. And sometimes that's the best we get." Z thought about that long into the night. A week later, Vincent invited them both to a dinner at the town's small diner. Earl refused at first, but Ziri convinced him. They sat in a corner booth, awkward and quiet at first, but the mood slowly shifted. The cook came out and hugged Earl, everyone waved at Ziri, and Vincent, out of place in his tailored shirt, just smiled through it all. After dessert, Z stood and raised her glass, sweet tea in a plastic cup. "To things breaking down," she said. "Because sometimes that's how you find what needs fixing." That night, Vincent walked Zia home while Earl drove ahead. "Do you believe in second chances?" he asked. Zoe looked at him. "I believe in good timing," she said. "And maybe this time is better than the first." He smiled. "Maybe it is." Before she went inside, she reached out and touched the ring on her finger. "You gave this to her. She gave it to me. And now, I think it's time I decide what it means." Vincent nodded. "Whatever you decide, it's yours now." That night, the wind picked up again, and for the first time, Zoe didn't feel like something was being taken. She felt like something was returning. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But enough. The sun rose slow on the morning Vincent was supposed to leave. Zoe stood in the doorway of the garage, arms crossed, watching the horizon as if waiting for a sign. Earl leaned on the frame behind her, silent, sipping his coffee. The town was quiet, but something inside her buzzed like an engine just starting up. She didn't know what today would mean. She didn't know if it would be the last time she saw him, or the first time she chose to keep him in her life. That kind of decision doesn't come easy, even for someone used to fixing broken parts. Vincent arrived late, for once. His suit jacket was slung over his shoulder, and he wore jeans instead of pressed slacks. He walked slowly this time, almost as if afraid to disturb whatever was still settling between them all. He greeted Earl with a nod and turned to Ziri. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know," she said truthfully. "But I'm not scared anymore." He smiled at that, small but real. "I never expected any of this," he said. "You, this town, that car breaking down, it all felt like something went wrong. But maybe it was the only way something could go right." Zoe led him to the garage. There, under a top, sat the old engine she had been working on for over a year. It was her project, her challenge, and now, it felt like the perfect way to close one chapter and start another. "Help me put it back together," she said. Vincent rolled up his sleeves without a word. For the next 2 hours, they worked in rhythm. He handed her tools. She gave him tasks. They didn't talk much, but they didn't need to. When the engine finally clicked into place and rumbled to life, Zoe didn't cheer. She just nodded. "That's how you know it's done right," she said. Earl came by and watched from a distance. The sight of them, sleeves dirty, foreheads slick with sweat, both of them smiling, did something to him. Maybe this was what Lainey had imagined. Not a perfect picture, but something real. Something held together not by blood, but by effort. By choice. When the job was done, Zuri reached into her back pocket and pulled out the baby shoe again. She handed it to Vincent once more. "You already gave me this," he said. "I'm taking it back," she replied. "It's not yours yet." Vincent nodded, understanding. "What do I have to do to earn it?" She pointed to the garage. "Start showing up. Not just for me. For the work. For yourself." He smiled. "Then I guess I'll see you Monday." That evening, Earl grilled chicken on the back porch while Z changed the oil in an old Chevy. Vincent sat on the porch steps, watching them both. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. But it felt like peace. Zoe's laughter floated through the air like something new, something blooming. Vincent didn't try to speak over it. He just listened. When night fell, Zoe found herself standing under the same stars she had stared at for years. But this time, the stars felt closer. She touched the ring and closed her eyes. "Mama," she whispered, "I think I'm going to be okay." A breeze rustled the trees. Somewhere inside, Earl turned the porch light off. Vincent stayed outside, watching the girl who might be his daughter walk toward the house with her head held high. And the next morning, the wrench she always carried wasn't on her keychain anymore. It was on the garage wall, hanging beside a brand new set of tools. Vincent had stayed. He'd slept in the old spare room, made coffee without burning it, and left a note that simply said, "Let's get to work." Nothing more. Nothing less. Zoe read the note and smiled. She didn't run to find him. She didn't ask for anything more. She just picked up her wrench and started her day. Because some stories don't need a dramatic ending. They need a beginning you choose, one piece at a time. Later that week, Vincent showed up every morning like clockwork. He didn't bring flowers or gifts. He brought himself. He swept the garage floor, learned to brew coffee the way Earl liked it, and asked questions, not just about Ziri, but about her town, her neighbors, the people she waved at every day. He met Miss Rena from the bakery, who always gave Ziri free cookies. He helped change Mr. Blake's tires after a blowout on the highway. Slowly, without saying it, he became a part of the rhythm of the place. Ziri didn't let her guard down completely. She still watched him. Still waited to see if he'd leave. But he didn't. He started picking up habits, using her favorite wrench without asking, finishing Earl's half-done notes on repair tickets, writing messages on the chalkboard by the door. Tighten the belt before the heat gets to it. Ziri is smarter than you. Don't touch Earl's radio dial. The messages made her smile when she thought no one was looking. One afternoon, a woman pulled into the garage with a Mercedes almost identical to Vincent's. She stepped out, frowning, and asked if anyone knew how to fix a hybrid control failure. Ziri jumped into action. Vincent stood back and watched her lead the entire diagnosis, explaining it so clearly that even the customer looked amazed. When the car roared back to life, the woman clapped and said, "You should be teaching classes." Z shrugged. "I'm still learning." But she glanced at Vincent and caught the pride in his face. That night, over dinner, Earl surprised everyone by laying a worn-out photo on the table. It was Lainey holding baby Ziri, her smile wide despite the dark circles under her eyes. "She made me promise not to let you grow up bitter," he said. "I think I kept my word." Ziri looked at the photo for a long time, then passed it to Vincent. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The days turned into a week, and the week rolled into 2. On Saturday morning, Earl handed Vincent a clipboard and told him to run the inventory count. "Don't mess it up," he said. Vincent saluted like a soldier, earning a rare laugh from the old man. Ziri watched them from under the hood of a Bic and thought, maybe this wasn't a mistake. Maybe broken families weren't always broken. Sometimes they were rebuilding themselves quietly, bolt by bolt. The next Sunday, Ziri found a box on her workbench. Inside was a silver chain, simple and clean. No note. Just the chain. She smiled and slid her ring onto it, letting it hang from her neck for the first time. She no longer needed to look at it every second. She knew what it meant now. It wasn't a mystery. It was her story, complicated, unfinished, but hers. By the end of the month, Vincent moved into the small guest house behind the garage. It wasn't much, just a bed, a lamp, and a roof, but he said it was the most peace he'd had in years. Z didn't say much when he unpacked. She just pointed to a small empty hook on the wall. That's where your wrench goes. If you're gonna stay, you need your own. That night, as the garage lights dimmed and the sounds of the town faded into quiet, Z stood in the driveway and looked up one last time. The stars blinked back. And for the first time, she wasn't waiting for someone to come back. She wasn't fixing what had been lost. She was just living. And somewhere, maybe, her mother was smiling.